So what I do want to make sure that I touch on, because I will get yelled at from people once they know that we had and sat down and talked.
Is it grumpy neighbor?
What? Yeah, let's. I want to get into this because one, it's entertaining for the rest of us because we
Look,
get to see it unfold from
I
your
find it
account.
hysterical. If I don't find it hysterical, like I would be the most upset person in the world. It's funny to me at this point. It really is. It's
So,
like an episode of The Office, but it's just like in my front and backyard.
and when I say it's funny and entertaining, one, I mean it, but I do realize that having an issue with your neighbor has that's just not good for your home life, and it just makes things
I
not
mean,
very cool. But I here set the scene, set the stage for us. What is the situation
like right
that you're
now.
having? Well, just in general, you have just a neighbor that just doesn't really get along with your gardening lifestyle.
I mean, do you want me to take it back? Like I can give you like an intro, like what's that called? The like background story on
Well,
characters.
you're jumping two steps ahead because I was going to you were going to
Gonna get there.
describe what is going on, and then I was going to what I want to talk to you about is what is the genesis? Something had to have sparked this
The
that
origin
I don't
story.
the origin story. I don't have that origin story yet.
Okay, I can give you the origin story. Um, I mean, it's like it's so weird. So we had moved in, and this was like 5 or 6 years ago, and we like literally moved into this house. Half of the trees were dying or dead, and like limbs falling everywhere. We moved, and it was the winter time. We couldn't really tell what was going on like underneath everything. But first thing we did come spring was clean up, like, honestly, what seemed like years worth of like leaves that were just stacked everywhere on the property. There were renters before us that had like the cops called on them all the time. So, like, you'd think new people buying the house, trying to like tidy it, not getting cops called on them for dealing drugs, screaming matches in the middle of the night. Like you'd think that'd be like an upward trajectory for this house and like you'd be generally happy. But we're cleaning leaves up one day because I mean there were so many. It was an ungodly amount of leaves, even for the amount of trees that we had. So we're tidying up, and I guess like in whatever tidying up we were doing, I decide like, oh, like this is a good spot for a little garden. So we throw in some peach trees. And this was like maybe month 2 of us living there. I knew at some point like I wanted to get rid of diseased trees and put in fruit trees. Like take one out, put something back, make it more productive for your space and your family. So we're slowly transitioning in the backyard. We're
And this is
slowly
all pre Bridget and Tiny Green Growers, right?
this is pre Bridget Tiny Green Growers. This is pre
Yeah.
Big Man. This is like
So if you're on her site and you know her just from her like super garden, which is a 360 around her house of just the most awesome things, and it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful house garden setup, but this is
thank you.
pre that.
This is pre that. So this is like everything is in shambles. We're tidying up, trying to like lay things out. So we have at first in the back, like 2 little tiny peach trees that are like honestly sticks at this point. They're like bare root trees from Lowe's that have just been like stuck in a pot, like whatever we could afford after like paying all closing costs and whatnot, just to put some trees in where we need to take out like all these old dead things, dying things. So that happens. Nothing's really said at that point. I don't think he like realizes what's going on, that it's like fruit trees. Cause in all honesty, like it seems like the only issue is that like this stuff is edible. Cause I feel like if it was like a flower garden, like maybe there wouldn't be a problem. Or if my trees were maples, like maybe he wouldn't have an issue. I don't know what the issue is specifically with like edible gardening in him. But anyways, so that 6 months goes on, and then comes fall again. And this fall, I'm pregnant with my first. I have horrible morning sickness into like week 25 of a pregnancy. I'm puking constantly. I don't feel good. Like all high hopes that we had for keeping things tidy and like clean and like azaleas trimmed back and like cleaning up dead camellias, that is pretty much like going to hell in a handbasket, you know? Because like I'm on the couch. Patrick doesn't want to come home from work and like do all of my bidding outside by himself. So there's like this interaction up front between Patrick and him, and it's over leaves, which now is funny because like all of our leaves are in our backyard right now, like in a compost pile.
And just so that we all have a good visual, because if people aren't able to watch the video of our podcast on YouTube, they're maybe listening to this on your favorite podcast platform, because we're out on every podcast platform that's there. But give us a visual of this meeting of your husband. I mean, you guys are young couple.
Yeah.
And then your neighbor is not so young.
He's not so young. So he's an elderly gentleman. And he is out blowing his front yard. So our yards touch, our yards kiss. It's his driveway, his yard, our driveway. So we are like connected. He is in his front yard blowing his leaves into our yard, the one that we are already struggling at this point to tidy up because I am vomiting nonstop and Patrick works very long hours. So he is blowing literally all of his front yard debris into our grass, like whatever is left of it. And it's not a garden at this point yet. It's like our older trees and camellias and azaleas. And it's like cute enough, but it's got our leaves on the ground because, I mean, we don't get up after leaves all the time. We let the leaves be. We sequester them to a different area to like let things overwinter, et cetera, et cetera. He proceeds to blow all of his stuff onto our front yard. And it's like, to us, it was just like this gut wrenching, like, are you kidding me? Like, we already cannot keep up with this. Like, we don't want to take care of your leaves. So Patrick goes, walks out. Like, this is our first interaction with this man in the like not almost year, maybe 6 to 9 months that we've lived there. This
First
is our
time any conversation.
Oh my God. Yes. First time any conversation.
Not bringing like casserole dish over or...
No. First interaction. Patrick goes out. He's like, hey man, how's it going? And he's like, oh, good. It's fine. It's fine. And Patrick's like, hey, I don't know, but like, maybe if you wouldn't mind blowing your leaves onto our property, like, you know, we're already having a hard time getting after it. Like, essentially saying that, like, we can't manage what's currently on our yard. Could you please keep yours in your yard and not literally push them all to our yard? And he was like, I don't know if like maybe that was the agreement with you and the people before in the fall, but like, we're not interested in that. Like, you need to keep your stuff on your side. And
what's the demeanor of your husband?
Patrick is so chill. He's very calm.
I want to ask you, because when you're telling a story, and this is just like when a friend of yours tells a story, or another husband or wife is telling you a story, and they're like, well, my husband went over and, you know, just said, excuse me. And, you know, they're portraying their husband as being very like reserved and didn't do anything. Whereas maybe in real life, I don't know Patrick. I mean, I don't know him a lot.
Yeah.
So that's why I'd ask you and the people listening. I mean, so when you said he went over and said, oh, you know, hey, or was Patrick like, hey, motherfucker, what are you doing? Patrick's not that type of guy.
Patrick's not that type of guy. Patrick by trade is an attorney. Like, he knows how to interact with people to like, he diffuses situations for a living is what I tell people. Like, he's literally middleman between this person and this person, trying to get them to solve their messes so that like everyone
that's
can
other people's stuff.
Yeah.
That's not like, your stuff. But you're saying that Patrick was very diplomatic.
He's doing that. He Yeah. So I will get heated very quickly. And I wasn't heated with our neighbor at this point. It was just like, oh my gosh. And Patrick was like, I know, I can't believe. I'll go talk to him. No, Patrick was like so calm, cool, collected. And then like it gets worse from here. Like this was the first, like we're not trying to like wage war over leaves. Like ask us in 2 years and we'll gladly take them and put them in our compost bay until we learn that you spray everything with Roundup and then like probably not. Um, so he goes over and he's like, we like already can't do it. Like if you could just keep this on your side, like that'd be great. And like, I don't know if you were doing this previously, like please don't, like it stops now. And then he goes, well, I don't even know where the property line is. So I'm just blowing it. This is mine. And Patrick was like, oh, well, that's fine. Like, so property lines typically are in between the water plates. This is your water plate. This is our water plate. And they're like separated by like 5 feet, right? And he was like, so one could conclude that like it's in the middle. And he's like, and that's where your fence lines up. So here to fence is yours and here to fence is ours. So if you could just keep your leaves on your side. And then grumpy neighbor responds back to him with, well, I'm taking that fence down anyways. It's old and like, it's not on the line. Okay. So Patrick's like, whatever. Honestly, like keep your stuff on your side. That'd be great. Comes back in. It was like a very short interaction. The week later, our dog is in the backyard with the fence that is in between our property lines. This guy starts digging up the fence. I am super pregnant, super emotional, super hormonal. My dog gets out because he lets her out, because he takes down the fence. No like, knock, knock, hey neighbor, I'm going to take down the fence. Can you bring your dog inside? Zero. So I think this is in, maybe it wasn't like the following week because it was in January because our friend had to come over in January to help us build a fence. So he takes down the fence. My dog gets out. I'm like, oh my God, I got to chase my dog around this neighborhood. And I'm like about to burst. Like I'm giving birth first week of February. And here we are in January and my dog is on the loose. So I get her back in and I'm like, dude, like you couldn't have like said anything. He's like, well, I told your husband, like I was taking down the fence. And I was like, oh my gosh, we thought you were kidding.
But how did you say it?
How did I
I'm
say
curious.
it?
Do you remember? Yeah. God,
Oh, I was like sassy about it. I was very hormonal, like very large and in charge. And I'm like chasing my dog who was like calmly in our backyard. And I was like, dude, you could have like given us a heads up. And he was like, I told your husband like months ago, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, honestly, whatever. I come in, I like shut the door and I call Patrick and I'm like, you have got to come deal with this guy. Patrick never talked to him about it. Like he just took down the fence when Patrick was at work and I was from home because I think I was like having horrible contractions that day or something. And that's the only reason Georgia was out during the day at that point. So Patrick never talks to him about it. We never talked to him about it. Like all is well. Like the guy took down the fence. Fine. We put up a privacy fence that weekend. Thank God we have like a really good friend who could come help us. But I'm like, maybe he took it down so we would put something different up. Maybe he's like actually the winner in this situation. So we have the privacy fence. I want to say like maybe a year goes by at this point. We still don't talk to him. There's no interaction. He stays in his house. He goes on his back deck.
is he by himself?
No, he has a wife. She also
And
stays at home, like
so you've
constantly.
never been out talking with the wife or?
Oh my God. Oh, even fewer interactions with her. They just stay inside, I guess, like all day long. I don't know. Cause it's weird. Cause maybe like when we had our first one, our first child, like we were outside so much more because we were bringing him with us. We wanted him to be outside, get fresh air, vitamin D, all that good stuff. But even still, like we would see him on his back porch, but there was never like a hi, how's it going? Everybody else in our neighborhood is like so friendly. And they all pretty much feel the exact same way about this guy, except for like one person and their friends. and I'll see like them talk. But
And they're probably talking about you.
oh,
They're probably on a
100%.
podcast tonight
They're
talking
like,
about the
Tiny Green Growers is going on with Brian Sierramachos. Like, but
see,
yeah,
but you
so
know, the motive. See, in situations like this, usually you can you can see where it kind of starts to where maybe it's an older couple that maintains and takes care of their yard, like they're the
oh,
gardeners and they have everything perfectly manicured, and then here comes Bridget and 30 kids and just kind of they got the pickup truck on the blocks and the front lawn and Patrick's motorcycle. I mean, I'm just
totally,
randomly throwing that. Nothing against trucks or
totally.
motorcycles. So this is why this doesn't make sense. Does
No,
he
I
have a really
mean,
nice yard?
yeah,
In
well, he has grass, like street to front stoop, bright green, all of the chemicals,
traditional
grass,
grass?
traditional front
Hmm.
lawn. Yeah. And he's got like one of the like cherry trees up front, not like an edible one, right? Like the pretty ornamental style. And then he's got his foundation shrubs, and that's it. Like no flowers, no nothing. So, I mean, they
And
keep
again,
it.
you guys are keeping up. Like you're making your property nicer, which is what we all want when we all live so close together. You want somebody that you're neighbors with. That at the very least, you're
Yeah.
maintaining, if not improving,
We were trying
value.
to improve, right? And that's the thing, too. It's like, we're like pretty rational people. If you had an issue with us not cleaning our leaves, I forgot that was one of the parts in the conversation, was before he had mentioned the fence. He was like, well, I didn't think you'd mind because you're not out here cleaning up your leaves. And Patrick's like, because I'm not retired and have like all this time on my hands to like clean up leaves every day. Like, that's not my first priority in life. Like, when I come home from working a stressful job, I do not want to do the leaves, and I don't want to do the leaves. I'm like pregnant and puking. No, thank you. Um, Also, leave the leaves.
Is he the interactions you've had with him directly? Then, if you haven't had any with the wife,
Mm-mm. Oh, not a single. I
other
mean,
than the one where he took the fence down and Georgia's running around, I get that. But any other
yeah,
interactions to where you guys between you and him, is there any kind of thing to where
it's
he's
it's mostly
upset with?
it's mostly Patrick, because I have to like, most of the time I'm inside with the boys, and I don't have the like emotional capacity to deal with it. Like, I would just get heated. So that was my next part in his origin story. Was about a year goes by after the fence thing. We never said anything about the fence. Like, we never were like, hey, this is on our property line. Like, I don't know. We just, it was whatever.
Let it be.
Let
Yeah.
it be. Like,
Hmm.
it's all good. You took down it's all good. Like, we've got our fence back up. Our dog is in. I see less of you now because it's privacy fence. And so about a year goes by. I am looking out the window, probably at like birds with my oldest, and I see him literally like coming across his yard with Roundup. It's like, and people love to give me shit when I say it's Roundup because they're like, oh, then it would kill his grass. And I'm like, no, it's Roundup weed and feed. Like, it's still like a pesticide, like an herbicide or whatever, because it gets rid of the weeds in the lawn. And so he comes up, he's trudging, and I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm watching him because I'm like, I don't want him to like spray my stuff accidentally. And if he does, I would like to know which one he sprayed. I shit you not. He takes his Roundup weed and feed. I have a fig tree that's maybe 6 feet from the property line. If you're going by the water markers in our new fence, like spraying it up and down. I cannot deal. I would be way too emotional. Patrick, this man is spraying my fig tree with Roundup. You need to go outside. Patrick goes outside. And Patrick's like, hey man, like waving him down, like a little
Yeah.
like hot and
Getting
bothered,
his
like,
attention.
hey, yeah. So he waves him down. Hey, like, that's my wife's fig tree. Like, that is not for spraying. Could you please not spray that? And he's like, he literally comes back with, well, this looks like shit anyways, so I'm helping you out. And then Patrick, I don't know. At this point, I'm assuming he's like pretty pissed off because like that was a horrible comment to make, especially like, fig trees are important to me because like I plant them after somebody dies. It's like a like an like a very symbolic tree. And so I'm like,
Sure.
you just need to like, no. And Patrick knows that that's a tree that represents like someone in my life. And he goes out, he says the thing, it looks like shit. I'm helping you out anyways. And Patrick's like, stop spraying your chemicals on my wife's fig tree. I don't know what he said back. I don't remember, but that was the end of their conversation. And then he trudges back, continues to spray the rest of his lawn. Patrick sits on the front porch and watches to make sure he doesn't like double back, which I appreciate. I would have had a lot more words. So it's good that he went out and not me. Um, but that was the fig tree story. More
Have
time
you tried using the
passes.
block button on him?
I
Will that
mean,
work?
like, I wish I could, but like, he's part of our life. Like, he's right next door. Like, unfortunately, as it is.
You realize the story that you just told, that was where I think I came into
Yeah, because that was a reel I made
your
because
life.
I was like, oh my God, can you
You
believe?
made that because you made the reel of looking through your window or the blinds or something
Yeah, and it
at your
was to
neighbor,
like a Morgan Wallen song. Yeah.
and then I remixed it as your neighbor
And then people took your
spraying.
side.
They did that. That was kind of a weird
They were
remix,
like,
but
why
I
is she
dressed up as
upset?
your neighbor, and then I took my sprayer and I put a piece of tape around it and I wrote Roundup, and then I went by my tree using the music on your thing because it's being remixed, and then I start spraying the tree and then looking at you in the window as you're doing
Like
your
silently
video.
judging. Yeah.
So I think that was our first kind of interaction because I just, not that I thought it was funny, but I mean I kind of thought it was funny, so I remixed it. So that was our first, I think, where I don't know, maybe you kind of found out a little bit of my sense of humor too, but I think that's where we started kind of discussing and talking about stuff.
Yeah. And like looking back now, I mean, I'm still like obviously annoyed that somebody would like come cross like the property line. Like to me, that's like a boundary, like a physical boundary, and like spray my stuff with their, whatever. But the like when, especially as a neighbor, like you could have knocked and been like, "What is this?" And it's like, that's my wife's fig tree. Oh, okay, good to know. Like I will stay away from it then. Goodbye. Like it's very simple to just like knock or talk. Like we talk to all the rest of the people like right around us because you see them,
Especially
you like
when you're
interact with them.
neighbors, and if you have an issue, you don't want it to escalate and to devolve into something to where everybody's miserable. So you probably will try to do what you can to, maybe this is where you say Patrick's really good in just going over, knock on the door, hey, excuse me, hi, I'm Patrick, and Bridget's my wife, and
Yeah,
we're just, just trying to do,
we're just
trying
we're
to
doing
calm
our
things down.
best. We're
But
doing
this
our
guy
best.
seems like he's just like,
Oh,
there's just something about you guys that he is just so annoyed with you guys
and I don't know if
that
it's
he's just
like
like,
I don't know if it's like so bored with the life that's going on over there that you need an issue to have to like live your life. But like, it's funny because like we'll rehash this with our other older neighbors across the street who are like a very sweet couple. And they're like, I don't understand. Like, literally, the people who lived here before you were like dealing drugs out of the basement. Like, they had the cops called on them all the time. Can you hear Patrick in the background? I'm like paranoid by every sound now that I can hear through my ear.
was he was he getting stuff cheap from them and he was pissed that you guys ruined a good deal?
I mean, that's a theory. Maybe. Maybe
Again, none of
that's
this makes, it just doesn't make sense for him to be so
I
kind of combative and like inviting this negative energy with you guys, with new neighbors, and you guys have to live with each other for years.
yeah, I mean, I get that like people love their lawns and stuff, but it's not worth like arguing over. I mean, the people across the street from us, they have a beautiful lawn, like very traditional lawn, but she also has gardens. Like she's got beautiful rose bushes, bird houses, bird feeders, like she's got all of the nature and you can still appreciate like the beauty in nature without just like a straight lawn. I just think that we are very opposite from him in a lot of ways, and it's like this huge issue that like
So
he will take to his grave. Is that
What is the
Georgia again?
strategy then that you and Patrick have come up with then going forward here? Because I haven't heard many stories lately, but I'm just kind
Yeah.
of curious. I'm sure you and Patrick have sat down and what is the strategy? Are you just wait until the next thing and then we'll deal with it, or are we going to what is it? What's the whole thing about with sugar instead of
I
oil
mean,
or something?
yeah, you attract more bees with
Yeah,
honey than you do with vinegar, right?
like are we wanting to try to have a sit down with the couple and
No,
say, hey,
so
what is going on? Or are we full on war
no,
here?
it's got, I would say we're not war. We are just, we've come to the conclusion that we are here, you are there. We're going to live our life and you can live yours and we don't have to interact and that's totally fine. No, but I mean, it's the fig tree thing happened. And then, like this past summer, I had put it in stories as it was happening because I was just like, what the heck is going on? Are you kidding me? And then Patrick was like, take it down. Like, that's ridiculous. But it was like a picture of him. He's on the phone with the county. He's on
I remember
a
that.
he's on an 8-foot ladder, peering over our privacy fence,
Right.
taking pictures of my backyard. Me and my children are out front. If you know me and you're a neighbor, you know that sometimes, like, my children are playing in kiddie pools, water tables. I feel very uncomfortable with you taking pictures when my children are outside of my yard in general. And like, if you happen to catch them in a picture where they're in bathing suits, like, I'm very uncomfortable with that. Immediately, I don't know what comes, like how it happens to me, but I'm like, I gotta record this guy. Like, he is on an 8-foot ladder, hovering into taking pictures of our backyard with his phone while he's like on speakerphone with, I'm assuming, the county, because he's like, oh yeah, they got like a shed back here and like it's not up to code. And I'm like, oh my God. So I take a video and he goes, oh, and now she's recording me. And I'm like, because I'm the weird one here. Like, you're on an 8-foot fence to see over. And I like literally, I stopped recording and I was like, can I help you? He ignores me. And then I started again because I'm getting annoyed and I have both my kids. And at this point, I was like having an active miscarriage at the time. And I was like, no, can I help you? And he like just straight up ignores me. So I'm just watching. I'm just in the garden with the boys. Like, they're playing at the water table and I'm just staring at him, like the most uncomfortable stare I think I could have put out, like into the world. That's what I was doing. That's all I could do. Like, I just couldn't process what was going on. I called Patrick and I'm like, this dude is now on a like an 8-foot ladder to see over our privacy fence, down, taking pictures. And he was like, okay, take the boys inside, like, don't interact. So I go inside. Fine. I go inside, I take down my story, and I think like he leaves. No. He goes to the front yard at this point and he starts taking pictures of our gardens. And I'm very upset because he's just like taking pictures of like our front yard garden. I call Patrick. I'm like, he's in the front yard now. He's taking pictures. Like, I don't know where he's going. He speeds off in his car. Patrick's like, I'm calling the county. Patrick calls the county. He's like, hey, I think my neighbor's been calling you this afternoon, complaining about a shed we have and possibly our front yard garden based on the pictures he's taking. They start laughing. Okay. They start laughing because whatever size shed that we had built was under like regulations of you need to, one, have it inspected, because Patrick knows all this stuff. Like, he looks up the rules. We don't want to violate rules, right? He looks up the rules on like how far you can put it from the property line, whatever. We know gardens like in the front aren't an issue. We're like, oh, maybe it was like the black fence that's an issue or whatever. And so Patrick's like, stay inside. Like, he calls the county. The county's laughing. They know exactly what he's talking about. They're like, we don't enforce front yard gardens. That's not against the rules. And we will say it till we're blue in the face. We will never come out. We will never come out for a front yard garden. Continue on. It's all good. And he's like, okay, we have a fence around the front yard garden. Like, that's cool too. And they're like, we do not care, my friend. as long as it's on the property line and the front yard fence isn't like a privacy fence, because I guess if cops need to hop over, they need to have access. So he comes back, our neighbor, and we are on the back deck at this point. He hops back up on the ladder. He starts taking more pictures. At this point, I am very over it. I'm like, you are a creep. Because he's had literally, we were on our deck and I just see his head pop up and he's taking more pictures. And I'm like, dude, you are creepy. And he's like, I'm not creepy. I couldn't see it from my bathroom, so I had to hop up here. And I'm like, you couldn't see it from your second floor bathroom? Excuse me? He's like, well, how else am I going to get pictures? And I'm like, at this point, I'm just like, I have both my kids. I could go off. Like, we go back inside. And I'm just like, whatever, dude. Like, whatever. Patrick comes home. He knocks on the door in like a, what can we do? Mediator. Patrick is the mediator between me, very upset, and our neighbor who is like, I have no words at this point. Patrick goes over. He's like, what can we do? Like to stop, like, what's the issue? And he's like, I've been calling the county on you guys every week since you put up your front yard garden. They still haven't come out. I'm going to keep calling them until they come. I'm like, they're going to take care of it. And Patrick was like, I literally called them on the phone after you got off the phone with them. And they said it was totally fine. And it's all good. And he was like, well, I guess that makes sense. He was like, I'm also calling our HOA all the time and they don't do anything. Patrick's like, we don't live in an HOA. It's a voluntary HOA. We live in an association where it's optional to pay the dues, and it's non-enforceable HOA. It's not a real HOA, my friend. And he was like, well, you're telling me I've been paying dues for the last however many years, and I haven't been having to do that? Patrick was like, yeah. He's like, you don't have to. And I think his poor mind was blown at that point. But then Patrick was like, look, you cannot take pictures of my family, of my backyard, of anything. He's like, and then he brought up the whole, like, what I was going through. And like, if you cause any more stress in her life, like, we're going to have issues. You guys live, we will live. We do not have to interact. So he set like a very hard boundary, and we haven't talked to him since. But I mean, usually we'll go about a year until there's another conflict.
But what did you ever determine what is the issue?
Mm-mm. Like the actual issue? No.
Yeah, in a sense that
no. I just think
again, you're beautifying, I don't even know if that's a word, the property. You guys seem to be better homeowners than the ones that were there before.
See,
now let's say if there was let's just say maybe somebody that is deathly allergic to bees, and let's say your clover lawn brings in too many bees. I can see that being something where he would rally the troops around. I still, to this point,
right, but then
with this whole story, I'm like, I don't understand what his motivation of being upset about. Like, what is it that he actually has an issue on?
Right, because if it's something like that, I mean, you just come over and you knock and you say, hey, like, I'm deathly allergic to whatever you've planted, or could you not, or could we take it out? Could we swap it? Like,
bringing down property values somehow, or
yeah. He brought that up too. He was like, my kids, this was in Patrick's most recent conversation with him, like after the whole picture thing. He was like, I'm never going to be able to sell my house. And like the people on the other side of us literally sold their house. It was in 2021 or 2020, early 2022. I don't remember. It was recent enough. And like they made a killing on it. He was like, it literally impacts property values zero. This is your property. But also like, you should see the Google photos of our house before. The mailbox was like 75-degree angle backwards, held up with rebar. Like, it's improving, maybe not like overnight, because we can't pay like this landscaping company like however much to do it all at once. But like, I don't know. I don't think it looks bad. It's just a garden.
It's beautiful. And for those of us that have followed you, we know we have seen a lot of pictures of your garden and the front lawn and the craftsmanship that Patrick has in building a lot of this shit. Like
I
you
know I feel so bad
guys,
for.
and there's another Ashley. I think she lives in Virginia. Her husband's very, very handy as well. And I'm like, God, I'm so jealous of your guys' husbands because I see them building this stuff, and then I've got like all these new Milwaukee tools, and I'm like, I want to build stuff too like them, and like my stuff looks like shit. So I can understand if like your neighbor lived next to me and saw what I just built for a firewood rack,
Oh,
I
that
would
was so
understand that.
nice.
But
I like your
like,
firewood rack.
uh, the stuff that you've shown that Patrick does, I'm like, you guys have done really well. Like it looks beautiful. You guys have done. This is a fantastic looking property. So if he's worried about you guys bringing down the property value for whatever reason, I don't get either. So again, I'm back to square one. Whereas I'm like, this doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and like that's the thing too. Like if you're concerned about, property value, okay, so talk to us beforehand. Hey, instead of tomatoes bordering my property, could you do like flowers as I'm trying to sell my house this year? Sure. Like anything to get you moving? Yes.
Sure.
Yes.
So do you think going forward, what are the odds of either you moving or him moving first?
This is going to sound bad. I think he's going to like die in that house and then his spirit is going to like haunt us. No, I'm just kidding. I think he's here to stay forever. Um, but honestly, like we're here for a long time because Patrick has to work downtown. We don't want to
So
drive.
this is something you have to deal with then, right?
Yeah.
He's
So
not going anywhere. You guys aren't going anywhere.
he's not going anywhere. We're not going anywhere. And it's just, I mean, you have to like laugh about it now. Like now I find humor in the fact that like this 80-year-old man had to like hop on an 8-foot ladder to like take pictures of our yard to call the county. And then the county to just turn around and tell Patrick, like, yeah, we know who you're talking about. And no, we don't do anything about it. And your shed is fine because it's under the size limits and we do not care. It's just like,
So serious question. Is there any safety issue with this guy? Do you feel like there's any safety issue?
no, no.
So he's just a grumpy, literally the grumpy neighbor guy, but there's
Yeah.
nothing safety wise. That's what I also want to make sure on too, because I don't want to make light of a situation where if this guy's a little off his rocker in a sense that he could be a potential safety issue.
No, I mean, that would be no. I'm not
I think your
concerned.
tone would be different. Yeah, I think your tone would be different. I mean, as far as like if you've told us certain things,
I think
if there was a hint of it.
I
But I just
think
wanted to double
he's
check.
just like old and stuck in his ways and doesn't appreciate like, which is crazy to me because like my great grandparents had full on gardens, like vegetable gardens growing up. And I'll look back on, pictures of me at my grandpa's dad's house and like he would have like even when they would do reunions there it would be like patches of cucumbers and patches of tomatoes and it's like growing food like where like food has to grow somewhere and the fact that like I just don't want to grow a lawn and I'd rather grow food for my family like that's not a new concept like it's been around for a while and I would assume that this guy's parents were at some point like living in the Great Depression and like probably had a backyard garden. Maybe that's like really upsetting for him. Maybe he thinks like because we can get it all at the grocery store, like she shouldn't have this. Like this is ridiculous. Maybe that's why it's so upsetting to him. I don't know. I unfortunately probably won't ever find out.
And the wife, zero interaction at all? Like, what is
Yeah.
she not allowed out? Is this that kind of a relationship you think to where it's like
I don't know.
she's just
I don't know because he had made a comment to Patrick in one of their interactions where it was like, I think I was planting like our first backyard garden and I was doing like tomatoes and I was probably like cleaning. I was doing something outside with my hands, like physical labor. And he was like, I'm shocked that like your wife is doing that. Like my daughter and my wife would never. So I don't know if he has like, you know, issues with that or that.
I mean, it just sounds like any other situation, if like my wife and I were involved in one way or the other in your house or his house, she would also have a starring role in this. She would have some interaction. And so the fact that this particular wife is not even, has not said anything, come out, tried to play good cop, bad cop, or anything, or come over to say, "Hey, honey, just
So sorry.
let's
Like, how
talk
can
between the
we?
wives."
Yeah, no, zero interaction. I mean, and it was like that before we had any interactions with him. Like, we just wouldn't see them outside, especially her, though. Like, he does the comings and goings for the most part. Like, he's the one who will do grocery runs, and like, I'll see him like taking stuff in. Cause I mean, we're outside pretty much all the time. Like, there is nothing that gets by us on our street if we're out in the front yard. And just at this point, it's like we will just sit and like play or like go smell
I mean, you don't
flowers
think
in
she's
the
there
other
against her
direction.
will, do you? I'm not trying to be funny. Like, you know what I'm saying?
No, I'm sure. I don't know. Different
Something's
generation,
weird. No, there's something weird.
you think? I
Yeah.
have no idea.
I've got a neighbor
I've
2 houses
literally,
down. Go ahead. There's something not right here. I'm sure when people hear this, this is like a forensic files.
I
Like
mean, she's
we've
alive.
gone like 40 minutes of talking nothing about but grumpy neighbor. We've got a lot of details here. And
I mean, she's there. Like, we'll see her. She
she can't
doesn't,
be this can't be happy. She can't be there on
I
her
don't,
own.
I don't think
This
they're
doesn't
like,
sound right.
I don't think they're like the happiest. Like, Patrick will take Georgia on walks and he'll see like two separate rooms on with two separate TVs. I think they live like very different lives because they never hop in a car. Well, sometimes they'll hop in a car together, but for the most part, it's
But
like they do their
sounds
own
like she
comings and
doesn't
goings.
leave. She's not out there. She's not outside. What
Mm-mm.
something's not right here.
I don't think they're like very outdoorsy people. I don't know if it's like that generation, like if they're, but I don't know. Like, I don't know enough people in
Yeah,
like
but you
that
come out, you
age
go
group.
get the mail,
He
you
gets the
see
mail.
your
Hmm.
neighbors. Yeah, but I'm
Yeah,
saying you see both neighbors. You should. There is
you
something.
should.
Am I crazy? There's no way. There's something weird in this household over there. It's more than just this. That's why I wanted to talk to you about it, and that's why we've gone over 40 minutes of just this.
I mean, it's a big
I
story.
find this fascinating. It's what it is.
It's
It's
a lot to go over.
fascinating, and I think there's a lot behind the scenes that we don't know.
I don't know if like they bicker about it, but it seems like to me, at least before this past summer when Patrick was like, you need to you stay in your lane, we are in ours. Stop taking pictures, like stop harassing my wife or else like we're going to have to do something about it. Like cuz it's harassment. Like at some point when you are hovering over, and I don't use that word lightly, but it
That's
is.
creepy too. Yeah,
It
but
is.
it's weird. It's a weird, creepy thing also. And if he wasn't like this old guy that you're not necessarily physically
Physically,
questioning,
yeah, no.
but if he was somebody that wasn't this super old guy, that would be a whole nother
Yeah, I think so.
issue to
If
deal with. There is something else going on in this house, and there's nobody else in the house.
no, it's the two
Is
of
there a
them.
basement, or have you heard weird things?
No, no basement. I think we're the only ones in maybe on our street with a basement.
You haven't heard any like weird sounds or anything?
No, and I mean we're out. Like we listen. We don't listen. We hear everything. I mean, it's mostly us that are making the loud sounds. It's my kids jumping up and down on a trampoline or like fighting over a construction truck. But no, yeah, it's just so strange because I've never had a one-on-one conversation with her. Like before, like and in between the whole like issues before it became like a real issue this past summer for me with like the pictures and whatnot. Like we would see her and do a little, you know.
Is she giving you like this sign, or what's that
No, she
sign
doesn't
where
give a
it's like,
sign back.
what's the sign that she's against her will or something
Oh,
that you're
I don't
supposed to
know.
give?
Is
Like
that a sign? Oh
when you're
no.
abused? Yeah, it's supposed to be something like that to where people know that you're being held against your will.
I don't know. There was
Now this has moved on to something a little more sinister for me, because this is not normal. And I am asking, if anybody does listen to this, let me know if you guys know of anybody else that sounds like this. There can't be,
I don't know.
other than
Or
Netflix
like
specials where you end up digging things up in the end
either
that you're like, oh
that
my God, there's a shallow grave back here,
the
or there's
only
8 kids in the basement.
yeah, they don't have a basement for sure. But the only thing that we can like think of that we've just come to terms with is like maybe they're just like really miserable people and like it just is what it is and they're like holed up in this house and like we are their Alamo in their whole like but see she's never had like she has never with the exception of like her walking in and like shaking her head as we're outside like she will never say anything whereas he's the more like
So you
irritating
said
one about
so
it.
you talk to other neighbors, and there's one other neighbor that is friends with them.
Yeah.
Do they hang out with the wife? Do they
No.
have any kind of information of the wife doing something?
No,
There has,
because
if
we're
see,
not really close. I mean, we talk to that neighbor that's like closer to them, but we're not like super friends with them. There are a few houses down, but she mostly just interacts with him, and he will interact with one other neighbor who lives way far down this way. But that lady is like the sweetest lady, and I'll like, I can tell by body language when he's talking to her. He's like pointing at our garden and like shaking his head. And he's like, oh my gosh. But that lady comes to me and she's like, oh, you have rosemary in your front yard? Like, I see. And is that corn popping up? And I'm like, this lady gardens, she gets it. And
right?
like, it's never an issue. It's a talking point with a lot of our neighbors. And we've met like a lot of people that we otherwise wouldn't have because they're like, I'm sorry, are those peppers growing against your driveway? And we're like, yeah. And they're like, that is so cool. Like, do you think I could put one
It,
in?
it is. It's very cool. So if you haven't, if you just stumbled upon this podcast and you're listening and you're like, what
Just for
in
the
the world is
forensic
going on?
files.
Yeah, yeah, it's absolutely fascinating, right? It's almost like I'm telling you that they're gonna find something. There's gonna be like 8 kids that have been missing that they're gonna find in that house somewhere.
I don't
But
know.
go check out Bridget's garden. And if you guys go to Tiny Green Growers on Instagram, it's probably the first place that you're going to want to go, because you can kind of scroll through real quick, and then you can hit up her blog. But you'll see what you have to also assume that this looks like a very nice house, that they have done a very nice job with it.
Well,
And
thank you.
so for these neighbors to, this is their Alamo, that they're like, ah,
I'm pretty sure
and to
that's
have this
just
kind of a problem. But the bigger story here is there is something up with the wife, if that's his wife. If that's his wife, I'll say it.
I mean, it definitely is. Their kids come to visit them, and their kids are
Doesn't mean
on
anything.
team mom and dad too, because they'll like
What do the kids look like?
the kids are
Do they,
older.
I mean, do they look like normal?
Yeah, I would say so. They look like
I mean, is this like
average.
a X-Files type thing? I'm telling you, there's something. It's a Netflix special. It's a 7-part series of what's going on in this house.
I don't know.
It's not. This isn't.
Our other
And I don't want to say like normal, because I'm not one to say, oh, this is normal, not normal. But if there is a case for something to be, there is something off. For me, it's this
this
couple in
detail
this house. There's just
specifically.
nobody is that sheltered from the world, that's like not allowed to come out or do anything. It's her house, her yard. She would be out doing something.
Maybe it's just because it's like straight grass and there's nothing to really maintain other than the grass. I don't know.
It'd be funny if maybe like she's a big Instagram person, like she's a social media star or something, and we just don't know her.
She's like doing TikToks in her
She's
basement.
like doing a big. I wonder. It's just I find it's fascinating, crazy, especially the fact that this technically right now I think is the longest podcast that
I mean, it's a lot of drama
we've
to
done.
go over, honestly. I've never even thought to look them up on social media. I just assumed that they didn't have it. So I might do
I'm
that.
sure have you looked them up just in general to see if anything pops up?
Mm-mm. No, zero. Because it's funny, like we will have the interactions, and then other than that, like they don't occupy, I won't let them occupy like brain space, because
Right.
otherwise I'll just be like upset about it. But at this point, I mean, it's so far in the past, with the exception of this summer, that,
Right.
it's just, it is what it is. And like my fig tree survived, and like we've still got our garden, and like the county doesn't care, and it's all good. But yeah, it's just
Yeah,
strange. We've
and I
had,
appreciate you doing all the details of it. I want you to look at this like your therapy session, because Patrick, you're going to get off of this and you're going to walk over there, and Patrick's going to look at you and he's going to be like, "What the hell? What are you talking about that
what?
stuff for on the podcast?" And it's your therapy session.
Perfect. Book it this time next week.
But we have there's so there is a whole thing of social media and creativity that I want to basically just focus in on.
Yeah.
And then your job when we do that podcast is to keep us on task to just
Talking
keep
about
it
that.
there. But I just have this feeling that there's going to be something new that pops up, and then that's going to be a whole nother podcast also.
Well, now I feel like I have to do like some like digging. Although I don't know, because they're probably not on social media, and they are older, so I'm not sure what I'd find.
I would doubt that there's anything somewhat traceable other than like a missing persons. There's got to be some
Brian is
girl.
convinced.
This is like John Benet Ramsey that's been missing or something that they can. You know what I'm saying? She's not missing, but yeah, that's very very strange, and it'll be interesting to see if maybe somebody else who listens to this know people like this, and maybe can
Yeah.
give us a clue into why they act like this and what kind of a setup they have, and maybe they're in a relationship like that, and they can kind of clue us in on what we're dealing with, what you're dealing with. I'm not dealing with it. I'm just
Yeah.
from afar.
The literal only thing that we can think of, like why he doesn't like our garden, is like maybe triggered in the past by his family garden, like that they had to grow their own food or something. And now he's like, that is so beneath me. Like that is so blue collar or something. I don't know. That's
It's
literally
yeah.
all I can come up with.
Well, if something does pop up, I want first crack at the breaking the story to everybody. But
You can run the Netflix special on it.
oh, I totally I want to be one of the stars of it. I would want to star as him if I can. Do I look like him at all?
No. you
Could I
need
play
like
him at all? Just
you need like
age me just a little
white
bit.
hair all over, no beard. I
Oh.
think he has glasses. I'm not sure. I don't really like try to make contact with his face. I think
I mean, look how big. Did you ever watch The Watcher? That was big this
Mm-mm.
past year, and I think it was on Netflix.
Oh, no. Is that the one with the guy? No, that's not the
This is
one.
somebody a family move into this nice big house, and then they keep getting things in the mail about somebody's watching the house, and then
You know what? I think we saw the preview on Netflix for it, because the preview was like somebody got upset because there was cilantro growing in their yard or something. And she was like, "Do you know how cilantro
yeah,
grows?" And I was like, "Oh my God, this is us and him." Like, except I'm the
I
other
think
one. I'm the crazy one in this one.